Hello and welcome into the Take the North podcast along with Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. I am Mark Grote of Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. And as we're getting ready to do this podcast today, Dan, I am what is on my mind is that the Bears didn't do their part in this division. This division was supposed to be competitive with every team in it. Every team has been except for the Bears. I mean, it's just one little piece to everything that has gone on with the Bears. But you look at Detroit, they are 10-1 on a 9-game winning streak, and the Chicago Bears are 4-7 on a 5-game losing streak. How unideal is this? And hello to you, sir.
Yeah, happy early Thanksgiving to you, Grote. I know we will spend the holiday together in the Ford Field press box. Yeah, look, the other three teams in this division right now are combined 27-6. The Bears are 4-7. They've got more losses than the other three combined, and they just haven't been able to get over the hump. They've obviously played well the last 2 weeks in spurts against the Packers and Vikings, showing you that it's not this massive gap that you have to close, but you have to know how to win football games. The Bears haven't been able to do it consistently enough. You know, Brad Biggs had a nugget in his 10 thoughts column coming out of Sunday's loss that the Bears are now closer to having the number one pick than they are to third place in their own division. Chew on that. It's a nice little appetizer for you for your Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I was driving around the other day and I was thinking in my head, I'm like, oh, wow, we have to start thinking about two things. The draft again, which I did not think we would be doing again, and another coach firing, which I kind of thought maybe we'd be doing that.
I said to Mark Potash on, I guess it was Monday, you lose track of days in these short weeks, but like the thought of getting to like late January and starting to research like the best interior guards that could be picked at like number 9 it's like an ugly feeling, right? Like at some stage you'd rather be preparing to cover a playoff game than getting on a conference call with Mel Kiper to find out how the center from Stanford is going to hold up in the NFL.
Seriously, I don't know if you know this or not, Dan. Some people do, some people don't. But I have hosted a show the last couple of years because of the Bears' position in the draft called On the Clock, just a special pop-up show that they made just for me because we need to do something. And we joke that this is it. This is the last year for that show. Guess what, Dan? On the Clock is probably coming back for another season. It's a terrible thing.
We can blend segments of that in here to a long off season on Take the North, where we can let everybody know all about the guard class in the 2025.
Oh man, enough. Let's get to our opening drive here on Take the North.
It's time for the opening drive.
And there was a lot of. Let me be completely clear. I was not at Haugh Hall on Tuesday, I guess it would be, because I moved. If you can see my backdrop, I am now in the South Loop of the great big beautiful city of Chicago. I did hear everything, but Dan, you were there, and there was aura talk, wasn't there? Brown, the new offensive coordinator.
Well, yeah, and the aura talk started on Sunday after the game when Caleb Williams was pressed on kind of his evolving and growing relationship with his new coordinator, Thomas Brown, and he used the word himself. That was Caleb's offering, that there's an aura about Thomas that he responds to, that the offense obviously has responded to over the last couple of weeks. And now they've got to try to figure out a way to tap into that aura for production as they try to finish off this season strong. Thomas Brown had his first chance on Tuesday to kind of address what he thinks Caleb, excuse me. By the way, let me give you a little side note here.
Yeah.
I had a handful of almonds before I came on the podcast today. This isn't the first time that almonds have caused me to choke up on air. You can ask our friend Caitlin Sharkey about a hit I was doing for WGN where like a 6-minute hit took like 30 minutes because I almost needed the EMT to come save me from the choking. So I apologize to our audience. Back to the aura that I am not showing here today, the aura that Thomas Brown has. And he was asked on Tuesday afternoon about what he thinks Caleb Williams is describing when he talks about the aura he has. Here's Thomas Brown, and we'll react.
I don't even know how to answer the aura question. I know it's a compliment, so Caleb, I appreciate it. I know my kids use it. My 2 older boys use it a lot. But, I mean, I just believe in being authentic, being myself. Definitely, I think everything about personalities, myself and anybody else, is developed over time. I think being in specific roles, being in front of groups, you learn to find your voice, learn to figure out what works. for you, but also it's ultimately about the audience, right? How do you bring the best out of the people you're communicating with and talking to? And I've mentioned this before, like being a husband of 16 years has forced communication. So between me and my wife, Jessica, so I've grown with that because I was a huge introvert before growing up, so I didn't talk. Never really shy, I would just keep to myself. And then having 3 boys who are all different personalities made me a better coach because when I first got into coaching, I was probably 24 years old, and I was kind of a one-size-fits-all. You're going to get it how I give it to you, and if you don't like it, that's your problem, which is the wrong approach. And so I realized having 3 boys, and my oldest son, Orlando, is probably the most like my personality, the good and the bad. My middle son is most like my wife's personality. And then my youngest son, Judah, is all over the place. So it's about understanding, again, still being my authentic self, but also when I deliver a message, I'm never going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you the truth, but how I deliver it is based on what brings the best out of you.
Grote, we'll get more into Thomas Brown's coaching philosophy and the way he's connecting with Caleb Williams in a moment. But I was struck in the moment, and then again listening to it back, by how comfortable that entire answer was from Thomas Brown. And you're sitting there and you're like, man, this is a really cool getting to know you session with the offensive coordinator. And then your second thought is, man, it would have been really cool to have this getting to know you session with the offensive coordinator back in May. Not the 2 days before Thanksgiving, where you're a short week going to play the best team in the NFC with a 5-game losing streak on your back. And it just speaks to the missteps the Bears made and the miscalculations they made, and signing up for the Shane Waldron experience and then pulling the plug on it after 9 games. And you just, I'm sure you listening to that for the first time yesterday was probably like, man, like this is a complete contrast to the back and forth we had for 4 months with Shane Waldron. And you understand immediately why the aura, the presence, whatever you want to call it, has connected with the Bears players. And that's the most important part of this whole thing. And Thomas Brown obviously showed a little bit of himself and a little bit of that charisma that he has on Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, you talk about, I mean, the Bears obviously made their choice between Shane Waldron and Thomas Brown and others. I don't know if it was a coin flip between those two, but they chose a certain style, a certain personality. And honestly, like, I don't think it was probably that difficult. I think the Shane Waldron decision probably came down to a guy who had more experience calling plays, and they sort of they underestimated the personality part. I'm just trying to think in my head as I'm hearing that and hearing the stuff yesterday about all of this. Do you remember these guys? Like, the coaches always come in hot, like, for sure.
Yeah.
They tend to make good impressions. So I'm keeping all of this in perspective, but I don't remember the last time there was a coach, a coordinator, or a head coach, and maybe we could do this exercise, that came in with that aura or that personality. I don't know, maybe Vic Fangio.
I was going to say it's a totally different personality type, but Fangio was the guy that, like, you felt the authority from, you felt the wisdom from, right? Like, he was the guy where you're like, okay, I understand why guys in the locker room, basically were referring to him. I think they called him a mob boss at times. He had the Italian side to him, and he just seemed like he was in control. He knew what he wanted, and he was going to get it out of you. With his leadership style. Totally different personality than Thomas Brown, but similar in the feeling you had. I'm like, okay, this guy knows kind of what he's talking about here. And that is important, as Thomas even said in that clip about, knowing your audience and how to connect with them to bring the best out of them. And that is something that resonates with players for sure.
Did Matt Nagy have kind of an aura at first? I don't know if it was an aura, but a thing. He definitely had a
vibe.
Yeah,
it was an energy. Matt had an energy. I mean, listen, like Matt was the coach of the year in 2018, and it's easy to take revisionist history to the whole thing and say he was a bozo from day one. That is not true, and he wasn't even a bozo on the way out the door. He just didn't fully master how to unlock the offense and the quarterback. But yeah, like, Nagy had that vibe to him that guys initially were excited by.
Sure.
Like with Thomas Brown, and we've got a little bit more to get to from him to further the discussion. But like, I describe it as like, it's like this combination of, I said charisma, but there's an obvious passion. There's a drive. Like, you hear him speak with a drive about wanting to get the most out of the guys around him by getting the most out of himself. And then there's just that word that I use. I get made fun of in the media room a lot because I love juice. And Thomas Brown brings the juice, right? Like, that's a juice guy right there. Yeah. And to that end, as we talk about him and the creation of the most important relationship he has here in the short term with Caleb Williams, he was asked on Tuesday about the evolution of that relationship with Caleb, given that they've really just been connecting on a deeper level now for 2.5 weeks.
That's a great question. I think it's a continuing work in progress. I think the first thing I did when I got the job two Tuesdays ago, is I called him and we sat down and had a one-on-one conversation so I could tell him what to expect from me and also what I expected from him. And we had a mutual understanding from the get-go. Obviously, my approach, my demeanor is different than some people, but it's always meant to bring out the best in him. And so we had to operate both with a little bit of blind trust, like I trust him, he trusts me, and then we figure out from there. But again, I think it's about being authentic, understanding what to say to him at the right time to either push his buttons or rein him back in sometimes, but also I text him after the game because he's a highly competitive player. Football is a very emotional game, and I like it that way, but also got to understand how to give yourself some grace, how to have some balance. And I think being hard on yourself is important to continue to have growth, but at the same time, we live in a world, man, he plays a spot where everybody's going to be hard on him. So you have to continue to punch yourself in the face. You have to give yourself some grace and move on to get better.
Does he respond better than to you just being more direct, or is there also some, cushion in what you're saying, some encouragement? How do you play it with him as far as how you communicate?
I'm a pretty direct person, so I think that can come off different ways to different people. But he's not soft, which I appreciate. Me and soft people sometimes don't always see eye to eye get along. But I think he likes being challenged, likes being coached. Definitely all about encouraging and uplifting our guys when it comes to doing things the right way. But I think it's about finding a balance about we've made some great improvements, some great strides, but, being good is not to be confused with being good enough. So I can be better, he can be better, the entire group can be better. So I think it's about finding that balance and also what each individual player needs.
One of the things you emphasized last week was trying to get the group to be sort of aggressive and play without fear. Mm-hmm. When you look at it through Caleb's lens last week and some of the throws he made into tight windows, how do you evaluate the way he played in that game?
Yeah, it was very obvious. He had no fear at all, which is, I think, the way we want to have him be able to play. I think about being aggressive and taking calculated risk. So aggressive is not being reckless. It's two different things. So not putting the ball in jeopardy, is doing a really good job taking care of the football. Obviously making some tight window throws, which is why you get drafted number 1 overall to make those big plays. And I think, again, when it comes to end of the game, end of the half, he's delivered in a big way, which I think sometimes goes unnoticed because of the result, which I get. But that's a rookie quarterback who, in my opinion, hasn't even scratched the surface of how good he can be. And it's my job, my focus to continue to try to find ways to make him the best he can be, hold him accountable, but also the entire group. So it's not just about him. It's not a one-man show. Myself as a coach or him as a quarterback. But it's about us all kind of working collectively together to get the best result on game day.
Man, Mark, there's so much there from what we heard from Thomas Brown and those clips alone. And you listened to him earlier talk about understanding that coaching isn't a one-size-fits-all approach, and you have to kind of meet the guy you're coaching or the unit you're coaching where they need to be met. And he's shown a knack for doing that. I love the quote in there that me and soft people don't always get along. I like that because it tells you about the hard competitive edge that Thomas Brown has and that drive that I talked about, that push. And then most importantly in this entire discussion is we're talking about a quarterback that played without fear against a defense that can easily make you freeze. And so when you're seeing a high level of pressure and blitzes and things that are confusing you and things that are designed to make you be a little bit hesitant, to be able to play free and fearless the way Caleb did against Minnesota, holy cow, that's a huge hurdle to clear. And I think Thomas Brown felt that way. And I think that there is something there between the messaging that Caleb was getting from his new offensive coordinator and the way he threw the football around. And you watched as well as I did. There's some throws where you go, man, like that was close to being picked off, but you're like, the number 1 pick's got a better arm than you have closing speed. And he just ripped it into the window that you thought you were going to be able to close, and you couldn't close it. So don't take that away from him. Let him do that. Really, really cool to see the results for one game on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, even Cole Kmet after the game, I think we played it in one of our previous episodes when I was talking to him with a group of reporters, and I asked him about those first quarter passes, and he was like, yeah, man, those were pretty risky. Like almost like, I don't think I would have done that, but that's Caleb Williams, right? That's Caleb.
Yep. And look, like that talent is what gives the people inside those walls at Haugh the belief that they can go to places they haven't been to in 40 plus years. And so don't coach him into being a game manager who's afraid to take risks. Coach him to be fearless and work backwards from the mistakes when they happen. And you heard Thomas Brown a week ago before the Vikings game say, I don't want our guys living with a fear of failure or a fear of mistakes. Love that coaching philosophy. I love that because it empowers you as a player to kind of free your mind and just be like, let's go, let's let it rip. And we know this Bears offense has enough talent to let it rip. We know that they have matchups that they can win.
No doubt. And I don't know what moves Caleb Williams yet. I don't know if he truly is on board with Thomas Brown like everybody else seems to be, if we're just putting that in his head. But he's certainly not hurting him. And I feel good about, Thomas Brown, chances are that he's not going to be the Bears offensive coordinator next year because there's probably going to be a change of head coach, and maybe he is, and I root for Thomas Brown, and I like that Caleb Williams is in his hands for now, if for nothing else, but because of the things that he says to Caleb Williams and to the collective media, which resonates with everybody. Dan, before we get to your what to watch for, because I'm very much looking forward to seeing how you're.
Well, I've got one more thing to play for you here with
I know. Yes.
Yeah. I was going to say a really nice natural segue to getting us into Caleb's thoughts on Tuesday about working with Thomas Brown over the last couple of weeks and kind of how he's responded and what that connection has become in a very short amount of time. Let's take a listen to Caleb Williams for a minute.
I think our connection and my playability and his coaching, I think so far is connected pretty well. We kind of. I think he's done a great job kind of understanding me, even though we haven't had many talks in the past and things like that, many opportunities to do something like that. So I think he's done a good job understanding me and the players that we have on his team. And I think that's going to keep growing. I think I think us going into this week facing this challenge is going to be another testament to that.
Would it have helped you to work with? Would it have helped you to work with Thomas from the jump?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, not having somebody jump in halfway through the season and you get a better opportunity to understand them, build a relationship with them, talk to them more, be around them and their families, a lot more and things like that. So, it would have helped, but that's not the situation. This is week 3 with Thomas. Week 3 with Thomas, I believe, and us going out there and performing, and performing well helps our relationship, and us having the open communication that we have during the games, on the practice field and in the rooms is only building that.
Can I follow up on that? What I mean specifically is, do you think that would have helped you in your career and in getting your career started? Would that have helped you play better, understand things better if Thomas had been your offensive coordinator from the start?
I wouldn't say that. I just say that I think us having an understanding of our players and how to connect with them, how to get them in the best positions possible, I think would have helped all of us overall on the offensive side, and being able to have these efficient games that we've been having so far on offense these past couple of weeks. And I think if we were able to do that a little sooner and get that going a little sooner, I think it would have helped all of us. I think it would have helped, and not just talking about us on offense, but helping overall the defense, special teams, everybody being able to play a little bit better complementary football. Like I said, that wasn't a situation that we were in. We're in a situation now, and being able to attack this face on, head on, is the most important thing, and being able to go out here and find ways to beat teams, and help the defense, help the special teams, so we can all come together and go to the locker room and celebrate.
Man, Dan, he is trying really hard not to denigrate the predecessor, Shane Waldron, there. And in the first part, he didn't, because I understood the spirit in which he said, of course, it would be great to have known him half. But then when Jason Leisure clarified the question, then it sent Caleb down this path of, it would have been great to have. And Caleb says everything in the exact same tone. Yeah. And it's a nice tone. It's a friendly tone and a thoughtful tone. But he got to it. Like, it would have been nice to, have a balanced offense and, run, pass, and throw Chicago, and we would get the play in a little bit faster and all that kind of stuff. So that was a good cut right there, Dan.
No doubt. And man, what a time, what a time for the Bears. And then, here we are headed into a big game. And I guess, before we get fully into our what to watch and predictions segment, I ask you, do you fear the possibility that the bottom drops out of the Matt Eberflus era on Thursday to the point where he is relieved of his job on Friday?
No.
Loaded question.
I don't think it's going to happen. And I've had this conversation with many friends. I think I had it yesterday. I had to cut people off yesterday eventually. Like, it's no more text. I'm trying to move here. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you think? I told you guys I'm moving. What do you think I have time for? No, because there are too many times where it was so obvious that you should fire the coach in the history of the Bears, and they didn't. You go back to Dick Duran and the mess that was Mark Trestman, John Fox, even Matt Nagy, even, as much as you and I both seem to like Matt Nagy. I mean, it was obvious, and we thought there was a lot of noise, thought it was going to happen. I'm not falling for it. I'm not, because I've fallen for it before, Dan, where it looks so obvious.
Oh, yeah.
My answer is no. No matter what happens, the flu stays. And unfortunately, one of the theories that I have is that this might be, Dan, and I don't know if this has come up before, this could be a Virginia Hallis mandate. It could come from her that she doesn't want this done, or even somebody beyond her who is beyond us right now. So it might start there, and there's nothing anybody can do about it.
I'll be as brief as I can with this. I've been asked this a few times over the last couple of weeks about the possibility of Matt being fired. You have to understand the disruption that you're causing to a football team that probably doesn't need much more disruption right now. If you remove Matt Eberflus, you're removing your head coach and your defensive play caller. So now you've got to find somebody else to call your defense and somebody else to run your team. You've got to have a candidate inside the building that can do those things without relinquishing the responsibilities they're already taking on, right? Like, some people say, turn Thomas Brown after the Aura segment into the head coach. Well, then what? Now he's got to go oversee the special teams and the defense and also create this relationship with Caleb Williams on the fly, and no chance, right? Eric Washington, can he be promoted and you figure out a way to make that work? I don't see it happening. Now, that said, the reason I bring it up is because we are in the 3-year anniversary of the Patch.com week, when there was fear going to Detroit that Matt Nagy was going to lose his job. And then the Bears went and won a football game in Detroit. And Matt obviously stayed through the rest of the season. The year before that, the Detroit Lions had their own Matt Patricia, who got to Thanksgiving week of his 3rd season and laid such an egg on Thanksgiving Day in a home loss to the Houston Texans that the Friday after Thanksgiving, he was shown the door. He was fired. Matt Patricia's record, 13-29-1. Matt Eberflus's current record, 14-31. You can see some of the parallels of, oh God, if the Bears go and they get their doors blown off, this is going to be a national conversation, and then the people at Haugh, namely Ryan Poles, namely Kevin Warren, have to determine, what does a reboot look like for 2025? How extensive does it need to be, and how quickly do we need to get there? But I warn all Bears fans, and I warn the people with the Chicago Bears, that the world will be watching you on Thursday in Detroit. And this game is going to be seen as a bit of a measuring stick at who you are and who you ultimately want to be. It's going to be really interesting to see how they handle this in a game where they are decided underdogs.
Yeah, and if you win, great, then it's awesome. And if Caleb looks good in the process, then we can all feel good, certainly. But I stand by what I've said in the past. Like, I don't necessarily need it. Like, all your points were great. Like, you're probably stunting development of a few players if you do the coaching shuffle at this point and everybody moves up a level or over promoted. But this would be an opportunity for Kevin Warren, George McCaskey, Ryan Poles to do something differently, something that has not been done before, as a message to the players, and it matters to me too,
right?
Fans. So I think that all makes sense. We got some other stuff to get to here that we didn't even get to in our opening drive, but I am anxious to get to our what to watch for.
Yeah, let's do it. Bears Lions, 11:30 a.m. Thursday Central Time. Obviously.
Let's go, Dan. Let's go. Juice it up, buddy.
No, I'm just kidding. Halftime performance by Shabuzi. First thing that we're going to be looking at is Sonic and Knuckles. Do you know who Sonic and Knuckles are from the video game?
I know Isn't there a movie coming out? Isn't there a Sonic movie coming out?
I believe so.
The guy with the mustache, the dude with the mustache.
No, Knuckles is the right hand man. I don't know if he's also a hedgehog. Maybe Studs knows what Knuckles is in that regard.
He doesn't know. He doesn't have kids either. I don't have kids. You're the only one who knows these things, Dan.
Sonic and Knuckles.
All right, hold on here.
Hold on.
All right.
Sonic and Knuckles is primely in.
Hey, producer
Studs, you're
man, your
breaking up.
mic's
Here we
not
go.
working.
Yeah,
Hey,
sorry, guys.
learn how to talk into a mic.
Guys, Sonic and Knuckles is very much from my era of youth. Sonic is a video
Okay,
game.
youngster. All right, get out of here with your young face.
There's like it was a Sega. It was on Sega. All right.
Yep.
Sonic. Yeah. And then the third Sonic game on Sega, they introduced Knuckles, who was an enemy at first and became an ally. The guy with the mustache is Dr. Robotnik, who in the movies is played by Jim Carrey. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I'm
I
in.
think there's 2 Sonic movies. I think there's a third one coming out. First one is actually pretty solid. But anyway, there's your Sonic. So like, look, you guys were getting lost there. I wanted to get us.
Thanks,
get us
kid.
back on track.
Appreciate you, kid.
On
Right,
we
no
march
problem.
with Matt Eberflus in the role of Dr. Robotnik on Thursday afternoon.
The
Sonic and
mustache scares
Knuckles.
the hell out of me, man. It's very, very imposing.
Sonic and Knuckles is the nickname that the Detroit Lions have for their backfield duo of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And those two guys right now, Grote, 11 games into the season, 2,024 yards from scrimmage, 22 touchdowns. They have one fewer touchdown than the entire Chicago Bears offense has. You see this group and the way that they play. Obviously, they're running behind a really ferocious offensive line. But the fact that they can lean into their running game as much as they can to open everything up that they want to do offensively is amazing. Do you remember David Montgomery? He was here for 4 years. He left here in the spring of 2023 in free agency because he said, in part, he wanted to be part of a more dynamic offense. Guess what? David Montgomery is part of a more dynamic offense. He's part of a backfield now where Jahmyr Gibbs is lighting the world on fire. I think he's averaging 5.8 yards per carry, somewhere in that regard. And they're about to go up against a Bears defense, Grote. Let me give you these numbers from this 5-game losing streak. The Bears have given up 755 rushing yards since the bye week, allowing 4.9 yards per attempt. It's the first thing we're going to watch Thursday. Is this a mismatch of epic proportions, or can the Bears do anything to slow down Sonic and Knuckles?
For whom have life decisions led them in a better direction? Saquon Barkley, although I don't know how much choice he had, or David Montgomery.
Yeah.
Wow. Like what a move. What a ballsy move by David Montgomery to do what he did, and Barkley too, who's an MVP candidate.
Well, look, it's my understanding that David initially was interested in coming back here, and then wasn't shown sort of the same interest and said, "Peace, I'm going to go find greener pastures," and greener pastures he has found. He is, there's always those pregame interactions between players that used to play together, and I can't imagine David Montgomery coming up to some of his former teammates and being like, "So, what's going on at Hallis Hall?" And then being like, "Well, yeah, because I'm getting ready to play in another NFC Championship game and possibly go to the Super Bowl. So best of luck, fellas. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you."
Feel like if I was one of the Bears, I'd be like, "Hey, you guys got any job openings over there? Is there anything? Let me know if there's anything that is wanted." What else you got here, Dan, on what to watch for?
So, speaking of job openings, Grote, this is such graceful segues. Ben Johnson, the coordinator of the Lions offense, is a guy who's going to be exploring job openings when the season ends. No matter when the Lions finish up, Ben Johnson is going to be one of, if not the hottest name on the coaching market. There are major questions around the league on whether he would entertain the possibility of coming to Chicago, just given the fact that he's going to have his pick of jobs when the season ends. And this isn't a draft, it's free agency. And the coach is going to be able to look at things and go, where do I want to be? Where do I most want to be? And where can I have the most success at taking the swing? Well, we'll get a chance to see on Thursday afternoon why Ben Johnson is such a hot name. And it's because he's overseeing a Lions offense that's averaging 4 touchdowns per game, and during this current 9-game winning streak is outscoring opponents 35-16 average score of those 9 wins. You've got an offense right now that is good at just about everything. Jared Goff's playing at a high level outside of that one interception-filled game against the Texans. We talked about Sonic and Knuckles. Amon-Ra St. Brown working through an injury this week. He should be on the field Thursday. Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta. my God, Ben Johnson's got a lot of things to work with, but he's also working with them very well. And you're going to get a firsthand glimpse at how dynamic this Lions offense can be and why Ben Johnson has such buzz around him right now.
Man, there is, you mentioned the name, and those are all obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, but Sam Laporte is the name that scares me because there's always, it seems like in this division, like forever, it's always a tight end that has some massive play against the Bears, like TJ Hawkinson, like Kyle Rudolph in the past, and any number of Green Bay tight ends making massive plays against the Bears. So I have a healthy fear of what he might do this week.
Yeah, rewind no further than 4 days ago when TJ Hawkinson got free in overtime to win the game. All right, the last thing we're going to look at here is Caleb Williams. And the thing we're going to look at here with Caleb Williams in this particular matchup is how he handles a short week. This is a first for the rookie quarterback, a Thursday morning game, 4 days after he played the last one. I started to ask him a question on Thursday afternoon, and he cut me off. So let's get to that entire exchange and understand what it's rooted in.
You're a big routine guy. How do you find?
Yeah, this is before you even. This is interesting for me. This being my first Thursday game, and it being such a large game, divisional game versus one of the best, if not the best team, so far this season. And, like you said, routine-wise is different. Having to, get up and things like that on your Tuesday, which you normally are taking care of your body all day, strictly, mainly mental work and things like that on Tuesday for myself. And, I would say I had a few mess ups today with some of the the new plays and things like that, just because you don't have those kind of day and a half to go through all the small details that mean a lot that I always talk about. So definitely something that after this week and after this game that I know we have another one this year, and I know that we'll have a bunch more in the years to come. So definitely want to make sure that when this happens next time that I'm prepared for it. I know how to, and I know kind of what to expect. So there's a lot of newness for this week. There's a lot of information, but we're gonna tackle it. After around 3 today to tomorrow on the plane and things like that. To when I go to sleep is when I'll be studying and making sure that when we go out there, that we can go out there and perform, and I can go out there and perform.
What are you eliminating this week, and how do you streamline so that you obviously can't get to all the boxes you normally check?
Yeah, you gotta try and get to as many as you can, and then you also there's a little less me time in the short weeks with the hours that you have and things like that. There's a little less me time, so you gotta focus on your sleep, recovery. Most important things, and especially in a week like this, is sleep, hydration, and eating right and eating well to be able to recover after a tough game that we just had versus another divisional opponent, and now we got to go go up against these guys in a few days. And so, like I said, those three things are the most important, and then having those three things and doing those three things well prepares you for this game and be able to go out there and perform.
Level of concern there, Grote, from the rookie quarterback.
I can sum it all up, but what Caleb Williams was trying to say, what he was trying to say was, this sucks. This blows. I mean, and I was feeling that for the Bears. Like, he's saying it because he's a rookie and he's not used to this. But from my perspective, it was, you just lost your 5th straight game against, back-to-back divisional opponents in terrible ways. And now you got to somehow get your bodies right for a game that you're going to get blasted in 4 days from now.
John DeFilippo, the former Bears quarterback coach, used to always talk about the QB1 lifestyle and the understanding that like you are a slave to the responsibilities you have as the starting quarterback of a football team. And in a week like this, it's never more intense. You have a game that you just played on Sunday where not only were you tested physically and mentally by that Brian Flores defense, you had to empty the tank, and then you had to go play extra football in overtime. And then you had to swallow, as you mentioned, the 5th consecutive loss and deal with that emotionally. And then when you woke up Monday morning, you were like, 74 hours away from having to kick off again against the best team in the NFC. And you're 23 years old and you're like, oh God, I just wanted to take a breath. And Caleb says there's a little less me time in a week like this to just kind of like exhale and go, okay, I got myself steady again. No, you don't really have time to steady yourself. He's talking about studying on the plane to Detroit. He's talking about getting himself prepared. He's talking about not knowing the details of the new plays for the week because they're just going through them really quickly in a walkthrough so that they can get on to the next thing in the next order of business so they can get themselves to Thursday afternoon, as well as Caleb played Thursday against the Vikings. Sunday against the Vikings. Thursday afternoon's test will be another one where you say, boy, like, welcome to the NFL, kid. This is your life.
You know what it's like, Dan? It's like having to move during Thanksgiving week and then
do a podcast.
Having zero organization and then having to drive to Detroit. So yeah, it's a tough trick, Dan.
So yeah, you're dealing with a little less you time this week, obviously also. And I'm sure that on your drive, you're going to have like a notebook full of things to study.
Yes.
When the traffic slows down, flip over to the binder, figure out what you need to do and rock and roll. So yeah, that's that. And
okay.
I think we're ready to bring in Adam Sinzinski and see how happy he thinks his Thanksgiving is going to be.
Yeah. What's up, guys? Hi.
We're doing picks.
Predictions?
Oh my God, we're doing picks, aren't we?
Yeah.
Right,
I would say, I'll get us started. All right, cool. I'll get us started. So this is gonna be ugly, and I said on Monday morning, one of the first things that I said in our show meeting for the Bernstein and Harris show on 670 The Score was, I think they're going to get their asses kicked. I think this is a team that is ripe for an ass kicking, and it's two teams going in the completely opposite directions. And I think that the Bears have been holding on for dear life. The players have. And I think this is when the wheels finally come off. And so I got the Lions winning this one 35-17. And it's probably going to be something like 28-10 the fourth quarter. And then, I'll be at my sister's house for Thanksgiving, and I'll just kind of put the game on mute and sit back and relax for the rest of the day and get ready for our post-game pod that we'll eventually do. And that's pretty much all I got on this one. There's no chance they win this game. Not even my
Did I miss the score?
What?
He's given like two scores. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Did he give a score?
I said 35-17.
Okay.
Oh, but then I heard like 28-10 and stuff.
I said it'll probably be 28-10 going into the fourth quarter.
All right, stop yelling.
Come on.
It's a short week, Studs, where we got less me time to listen.
Don't you yell at me.
That's all I got. Lions win 35-17.
Good stuff, Studs. Thank you.
Dan?
Dan?
All right, Grote, I'll take it next, and I've got a closer game than Studs has. Not much closer. 31-17 Lions. I do think that this is set up to be a defeated and emotionally exhausted team stepping out of the train tracks in front of a barreling freight train. And I have a feeling defensively they're going to really struggle to keep the game on their terms. It is worth pointing out that the Bears did force Jared Goff into 5 interceptions in 2 meetings last year. Found some strategic wrinkles to keep this Lions offense in check. But that was last year. And these are 2 different teams at this stage of the season. And I just like the Lions are rolling right now. And I don't see that roll stopping, even with some of the injuries that we'll get to in a minute. They're going to roll and they're going to get another win.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears have been bursted by so many running backs this year. And you have, as you outlined very well, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I mean, you stop them a little bit early, but there's no way you're going to contain both of those guys. And that's just 2 guys on their offense. What I do think is going to happen is I think the Bears come out like sort of one last stand and they look good for a while and maybe even take like an early lead on Detroit, right? I mean, just like they're going to be inspired, but eventually talent wins over. I do think the Bears are going to be at their best in this game for a while, but then Detroit pulls away. I've got 34-14. The Lions beat the Bears.
There we are.
And that's that. 0 for 3 for the Bears today. Let's get to our 2-minute drill.
The 2-minute drill. The 2-minute drill.
Got some trivia nuggets for you, Grote, to get us rolling here. The first one is that the Lions are currently enjoying a 9-game winning streak. That's one off the franchise record, which was set a cool 90 years ago when they won a franchise record 10 games in a row. That tells you how long it's been since the Lions had a roll like this. Pretty impressive to see them playing the football that they're playing, capitalizing on the momentum that they created last season, coming within an eyelash of the Super Bowl and keeping it going. Obviously, I think you probably have taken note of how well this football team has been playing since September.
Yeah, I mean, it really is an amazing turnaround because it just wasn't that long ago that you were always able to look at Detroit on the schedule and say that's a win, or Detroit, because they did. There were many years where the Lions would get off to fast starts in their season, and then everybody's, oh yeah, it's the Lions, and then they would completely sink. So there is definitely a different aura, if I may go back to that word, about the Detroit Lions. I want to ask you one thing here, Dan, as part of our 2-minute drill, and I know you got more stuff here too. Do you feel good about the 4th and 4 from last week? Was everything taken care of with that? Are we done with the 4th and 4? Is it over? Is it done? Are we moving on?
The book is closed. Am I good with it? No. I mean, Richard Hightower on Tuesday afternoon essentially told you that, the coaching communication lines during a game is complicated. When you've got headsets with a lot of different people communicating on a lot of different channels. There's an offensive channel, there's a defensive channel, there's a special teams channel, there's a game management channel. And the way I translated what Richard Hightower said on Tuesday was essentially that Matt Eberflus didn't correctly communicate to the special teams channel that they were going to go for it if they picked up yards on the 3rd down play. And so you just had another glitch in the communication system.
Channel 4. We're channeling on. Channel 5. Special team channel 6.
Like every second matters, right? And when you have a little bit of chaos for 3 seconds, and then that results in, as we documented the other day, the play call coming in wrong, the huddle operation being rushed, the quarterback trying to get things set up right before the play clock goes off, throwing a pass off the mark, squandering a possession, losing a game in overtime by 3. Like, you hear people say all the time, it's not too big for him, right? When they're talking about players and trying to step up to the level of competition in this league, there's a lot of evidence growing that the head coaching job is too big for Matt Eberflus, that he's just consistently overmatched and clumsy in moments where he can't be overmatched and clumsy. I think this was another one of them. And I guess that's my attempt to close the book on that disaster.
Dan, let's close the book on the show. Why don't you give us a couple more nuggets before we get out of here?
I got a trivia question for you.
Oh boy.
The Lions have another streak going right now, and it's that they haven't won on Thanksgiving Day since 2016. That includes 3 losses to the Bears. Can you name me the last Lions player to score a touchdown in a Detroit Thanksgiving Day victory?
Oh my God.
So I've given you the year.
You're talking about 2016.
2016. And it's a pass from Matthew Stafford.
Okay. Can I get a first letter in the last name?
You can. B. You want to phone a friend?
B?
B as in boy.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Would his first name be Anquan?
Mark Grote.
Yes.
And you didn't even need to go cheating on the internet and go search that out. I'm proud of you.
Yes, I didn't. No, that's fair. I'm actually impressed with myself. Dan, something about I suck at on-the-spot trivia. I feel like I know a lot of shit, but when I am asked something like on the spot, I don't usually get it, but I feel good about that because I remember Anquan still being around Detroit when they sucked. So
I looked that box score up, and I had forgotten that Anquan Boldin was ever a Lion, and of course he was a Lion.
I don't know why I remembered that. I shouldn't have remembered that. But
you should have. It's a good memory, and that's a Matthew Stafford Anquan Boldin touchdown pass was the Lions' lone touchdown in a 16-13 win over the Vikings. Cool 8 years ago. I believe.
What else you got for me?
All right, 2 more things. Yeah, the Lions are likely to be out without their starting left tackle Taylor Decker. That will put Dan Skipper into the role at left tackle. The Bears better find a way to attack a next man up situation on the Lions offensive front. The Lions offensive line is really, really good. When they lose a guy like Taylor Decker, you better find a way to capitalize. It sounds like Amon-Ra St. Brown is likely to play with a knee issue. David Montgomery has been dealing with a shoulder issue all week. Sonic and Knuckles, they're ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
Thursday. We've already established that. And I got one last thing for you.
Yes.
I don't remember what year it was, but on one of our many trips to Detroit, the halftime performance was a guy named Mike Posner. I know you're into music. Do you know Mike Posner at all?
Yeah, he's like a big hip hop guy, right?
Yeah, like poppy, hip hop type of thing. And I was really excited when we walked into the stadium that day to know that Mike Posner was going to be performing, because there's a handful of Mike Posner songs that I really like.
Okay.
Please don't go being among my personal favorites if you want to kill 4 minutes on your drive to Detroit later, you can throw on, hey, Siri, play me Mike Posner, please.
Okay.
Don't go. And you can listen to it. Mike Posner came out at halftime after I had talked him up to my colleague Rich Campbell and the other 6 people that were sitting in my immediate radius, and gave one of the worst halftime performances in the history of NFL football. It was entirely depressing. Twitter was blowing up. If you could do a time search for that day on Twitter, with people being like, who is this guy? This is horrible. Where did they find him? It was like the most embarrassing halftime show that I've ever witnessed. This year we get Shabuzi, but hopefully Shabuzi will do a little bit better than Mike Posner did those many years ago.
Was it one of these years? I might be conflicted. No. It was at the Giants where they had Big Boy from Outkast. Was it? I think it was. I believe it was in New York. That makes sense. For some reason, I was thinking it was Detroit. But
I think we got ludicrous pregame in Vegas in 2021.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. And I used to, and when I did the sidelines for several years, so that was always like a highlight of mine. I'm like, hey man, everybody's clearing out. I'm staying down on the sideline and watching this act, whatever it is. I get to watch a little bit of live music. So,
well, I think Mike Posner was so bad, if I'm not mistaken. I remember Olin Kreutz feeling obligated on Twitter to chime in with his own takedown of Mike Posner. So we can maybe pull that up. We'll attach it to a Take the North tweet, and off we go to Detroit for what should be a really, really fun Thanksgiving.
What's up with this guy? Got to watch the film. Watch the film on this guy. That was terrible. Oh man. Great episode. Great stuff from you, Dan, as always. We shall see. I have a feeling this will be a week in which all 3 of us, our predictions will be right on a Bears loss, but who knows? Dare to surprise us. For Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune and The Score, for Adam Sidzinski, the executive producer of the Take the North show and also the producer of the Bernstein and Harris show, I am Mark Grote of The Score. Thank you so much for listening to and watching the Take the North podcast. Take care.
Great talk, Grote. I'll see you at the stuffing trough.
Yeah.